It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmick Voice. Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 7, Episode 12. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
What's going on, everybody?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to yet another show. Chris, how are you, sir?
Mick, I'm doing well, brother. I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Fantastic. As the season rolls on. We are midway through the season.
Midway.
Already.
Yes.
Already.
And it's going to be a good season when we look at our list of topics and it's really hard to decide on which one you want to tackle.
I know.
I'm always like, I'm in the mood to do this one.
A lot of fire in that list. A lot of fire. That's why we have to take at least a half an hour, 40 minutes to rev up before we hit record.
That's right.
We have to kind of clear the slate first. We can't come in so headstrong. Maybe that would help ratings, but at the same time, we're not supposed to sound that angry.
Yeah, that's right. And, with ratings, it's tough now because, now not only are we up against Joe Rogan, now we're up against Miss Kelsey. So, it's getting harder in this podcast world.
It's real hard for us. It's really hard.
Yeah, Miss Kelsey took the world by storm. So she knocked out Joe Rogan for a little bit. So,
yeah.
Now everybody moved down a rung.
Listen, we're just lucky that we can still do this in our basement and attic. So there you have it. So what have you been up to, buddy boy? What have you been up to?
Nothing much, man. Nothing much. We got a couple of new songs, with my newest band. We got a couple of new songs, looking to start getting ready to record for the next record. And, we got some shows coming up this year, but not as busy as I would prefer to be, but I'm happy about the things that I do have. So, we talked about it before, it's getting to be quality over quantity in the new year because it is getting harder out here doing what you and I do. We're just trying to be smart now and, try to move forward, staying busy, keep doing what we love to do. That's it, man. That's it, brother. Other than that, nothing, man. Nothing at all. It's winter, so, it's all gloomy and dark and cold and
way too cold.
Ridiculous. Oh, way too cold.
Too cold.
The time recording this, it is way too cold.
Going on what you're saying, I agree 100%. Over the last couple weeks, I've had numerous issues that have popped up from the outside that I'm surprised that these things are happening. And it makes you look at, your plan of action, your course and stuff. And it puts into perspective some things that are probably more important. It's been no secret that I'm not a social media fan. I realize that it's part of what we do. So I try to maintain a certain amount of that. But I find that it's becoming more and more distracting. And we've talked about this before. It does less and less for you, at least in my opinion. I know people will argue and debate that, but you're always going to have that. You're always going to have that small percentage that it actually does work for, because that's with anything, even the placebo effect. And then you'll have that percentage that will argue that it does something, and they have really no idea whether it does or doesn't. It's just because they're active on it. And just because you're active doesn't... Listen, you could have a gym membership and go regularly and stand around, carry your towel, get a drink of water every 15 minutes, lift some weights, and then go home. Well, I go to the gym. Well, you're right, 100%. Yeah. You're telling the truth. You go to the gym. But in my day, when I said I went to the gym, I usually came back with a torn shoulder, a weight fell on me, but I was bulking up, you know what I mean? And, that kind of thing. So who knows? But I'm looking at things very similar to the way you are. But I'm going back to, and I've always subscribed to this, but this is probably more so where I'm really, content is king. The more content you have that's good, the better you have. Because then, like you're saying, longevity for your career If you have content, you can constantly release. That's it. You can constantly release. That has nothing to do with playing out. That has nothing to do with Facebook numbers or anything that. You just have stuff that you could put out to the public. And this year, and maybe the coming year, I'm looking to spend more time in-house. And by that, I mean I have a lot of material I want to get to, a lot of material I want to finish, a lot of material I want to release. I have projects that will require different versions of my material or the band's material, and I'll be able to expand on those projects as standalones, but in correlation to the whole catalog in time. It will be a benefit and an addition to. So I'm kind of excited about that. And same thing, not a lot of shows, not looking at the moment. Listen, I like playing out, don't get me wrong. I do find it to be a valuable piece to the puzzle. However, I know we say it every show for the last 7 seasons. It's getting harder and harder, and people are like, well, it's just that things keep changing. Standards keep changing. They think that they're jumping up in quality, like some of these standards, but in reality, if you look at them, they're actually lowering. Prime example, a band is booked to a show. The show has 4 acts. One of the bands puts the night together, 4 acts. Last minute, the venue adds a 5th band. Well, that throws things off a lot, doesn't it? It throws off the lineup. It throws off the set time. It throws off just getting on and off. Because you've added a 5th band, you've shortened everybody's time, but you've backed everybody up. So that means you're getting on later, crowd starts to diminish, so on and so forth. Because the nature of this business is, especially at the local and regional, is the crowds diminish after a certain time. Now, look, you're going to say there's places that doesn't happen. You're absolutely right, because you can find anything you want to support your narrative if you look hard enough. But is it the norm, and is it the majority? Most of the time, it's not. Listen, when I played in Canada, people were still coming in at 1 a.m. in the morning. Packed. Like, they literally had rotations of crowd. We talked about it while we were there. Like, this is amazing. Like, we're not used to seeing it. Shows started a little later because of that. Like, they didn't start at 7:30. Why would you start a show at 7:30, especially on a Friday night? Have a DJ play or just spin the jukebox, right? In the old days, when did you know that shows started, unless it was an all-ages night?
Right, yeah.
I mean, unless you're talking about, like, going to the Spectrum or the Wells Fargo or something like that. That's different. That's different.
On our level.
On our level. Shows didn't start at 6 o'clock. Listen, I'd be happy if shows actually started at 6 o'clock, but then ended at a decent time, not start at 6 and try to go to 1 a.m. I mean, I don't know how many marathon metalheads there are still.
And then, load-in's 4. So, you're there, 6, 8, 10 hours.
Yeah, you're bringing a cot and a sleeping bag and, running a tab at the pizzeria next door.
Man, like, I get it. I totally understand the aspect of why you would want to add a band because you're trying to get more people in the door. I get it, but you have to realize that when you add a band, at the last minute, it just screws the entire show up because you've already given out the time slots. You've already told bands this is when you're going on, and then you're setting everybody back by an hour or at least almost. It's just
right.
It's
and you
so
always
bad out there, man.
have bands that take too long to get set up and come off. I mean, it's a socialization afterwards. It's just crazy. And that's never factored in, never considered. There has to be a balance.
It's Russ the Boss.
Take it down.
Johnny D from Britney Fox.
This is Stephen Piercy from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
Anyway, I'm back to Content is King. I'm working on that. People will go, well, you just released an album. Why are you working on new? Because that's the way it works. Usually it's in that time when you're inspired the most. It's not when you're idle. It's when you got all this stuff happening, you feel this urge to keep going. And, I've said this before. One of the problems for me, writing has never been a problem, thank God, or whoever you believe in. But I know people talk about it, like, oh, I can't, I've never had a problem. But I've also prefaced that with saying, does that mean that everything I write is knocked out of the park? Well, absolutely not. That means some of it's garbage, right? But the goal is to keep writing, to let it flow. Some stuff sounds the same. Well, you don't use that. Or you take 2 songs that you're like, oh, okay, but you put them together. Or, there's always those songs that come out and you go, oh, my God, like, how did I come up with that? Yeah. But that's never been the problem. My problem has been stopping. I have to get myself to stop. Otherwise, I can't get other stuff done.
Yeah.
I can write, but I got to take time to record it. And then I got to, mix and get everybody else in and all that kind of stuff. So I have to kind of curtail some of it. But when the mood strikes, when you have that fire going, you keep going. We've learned that Prince had like 100 albums done, produced, high quality, and it's just sitting. And that means there's probably more.
Yep.
You would expect a musician to do exactly that, right?
Yeah.
Record, not play soccer, not go to knitting classes. Sure, you could do that. You could do whatever you want. But a football player is expected to play football. Doctor's supposed to be a doctor, so on and so forth. But a musician, if they write too much, people have a problem with it. Like, I don't understand that mentality.
Yeah.
If I pumped gas, you'd expect me to pump gas. And the more gas I pump, the better employee I am. The better gas pumper I am. I'm the best gas pumper around. Nobody pumps the gas that I pump.
Man, it's just so hard to, and that's another thing, like with content, I'm an old school guy. So, when I see all these young kids that, all these, and I don't want to get on some high horse, but, I see all these kids that don't really want to work because a lot of these kids can make money off of doing, playing video games or whatever. I go, some of these kids, these young people, I shouldn't say kids, these young adults that are making money and branding themselves, the content they put out is unbelievable. They must constantly be on their phone, because with a new band that I'm involved in as of right now, I'm trying to put out content just to keep things rolling, keep numbers moving, and trying to stay in everybody's feed and yada yada. But I'm like, man, this is not easy. Like trying to filter a picture here, a picture there, and trying to come up with new ways to post a flyer or post a show, or it's a lot. It's crazy how much work is involved in content is king. It really is. It's hard for bands because there's so many bands, and we all get lost in the shuffle. We really do. We really truly do. And if something happens to your Facebook, you lose that momentum, and trying to get it back, forget it. Now you got to work even harder now to get where you once were.
Oh yeah. Not that I want to go down that route and take up our valuable, precious airtime, but I experienced the same thing some time ago. My Facebook was suspended because I was told I went against cybersecurity standards. Didn't tell me what that was, not even sure what that was. I think it changes every minute of every day.
Every day.
The only thing that I know is I put a Sesame Street post up because I follow Sesame Street, because I'm from that generation. And I think, listen, we need good in the world. You can call me hokey and you can call me whatever you want. But listen, I'd rather go with good, man. I don't care.
Absolutely.
I put it up and they literally suspended me. And I was down for quite a while. And I had to consider the possibility of it not coming back. I mean, after 15 years of working with it, seeing that my track record is what it is, and for the most part, 99.9% of the time, I do not put anything personal, political, social, economical, bad grammatics, yes, but I don't get into any of that. I do share Christmas posts, but usually I'm sharing like a countdown or something like that.
That's why you got flagged.
That's probably why I got flagged. Someone was angry about it. But my point here is that I was shut down as someone who's promoting a brand and a band and music and stuff like that with no recourse. So I was left to start figuring out what I was going to do after 15 years. A heat of caution. Don't get wrapped up into one social media platform or any platform. If you're going to do that, I'll go back to what I said from day one. Have your own website. Funnel people back there and do whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
Facebook, to be verified, you got to pay for it. It's a secret they don't tell you until they offer it to you.
Yep.
And they have different packages. And if you're not making money from Facebook, why would you pay them money? It doesn't make sense.
Right. Doesn't make sense. Nope.
Again, content to me is king. And I can continue to do content whether I'm on social media and or not.
Yeah.
If I did none of that and I just promoted my website, however I promote it, I go back the old route. I put up flyers, physical flyers.
Yeah.
I hand out cards. I start sending out emails. I start doing newsletters. I did newsletters for years. I still do them, but I only do them like once a quarter now. I used to do them every month. I am considering strongly, especially following the issue that I had with Facebook, about doing newsletters more consistently. The reason I went to quarters is because I know, as an email user still myself, I hate getting extra stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we are still
Yeah.
right, showing some level of respect for the audience that signed up for my newsletters,
Right.
to not bombard them all the time.
Yeah.
Right? So I figure, well, I could do recaps, once a quarter. And that's what I've been sticking with. But I am considering that re-establishing that more personal connection through newsletters as I move forward. Am I 100% about it? I don't know. I'm not sure, because it is time consuming to do it correctly. Yeah. However, it is something that I have on my list of top 10. Content is king, baby. What's a band without songs? Seriously, how do they grow without music?
Yeah,
they can't.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I'm excited that you're already working on a new album. That shows that you guys got a fire going and you're feeling good about what you're doing. I think that's fantastic. Don't let anybody tell you, well, why are you writing so much material? Why? We heard that for years because we were releasing every 6 months. Man, what's the big deal? It ain't coming out of your pocket. You ain't paying for it.
100%,
what do you care?
100%.
What do you care what I do?
Man. It's
huh?
right.
I'm the best gas pumper this side of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, man, it's just kind of where we're at in this day and age of being an artist, our level. We want to create, because the touring is harder, playing shows is getting harder. So if you can be in your studio or in your home and start writing material and then just, going in and recording it and releasing it, we don't have, we always will. We'll always have physical copies. That's just because that's kind of the school of thought that we are. But especially now in the day and age of streaming, you don't even have to sell hard copies. You could just promote your new record and put it out on streaming services. And I've seen a bunch of bands do that. I've seen a bunch of bands at our level do it. I've seen bands above us that have just, written new records and just for streaming. That's all we do. And if you want to buy it, then you download it. It saves the artist money or, whatever the case may be. And, you're still creating, you're still putting your stuff out there, and, we're just doing it differently than the old ways of writing, recording, touring, writing, recording, touring.
Right. The model's changing. That's it. It's not feasible. You don't have the audience the same way as you once did. You don't have the venues working with bands in the same way that they once did. You don't have the number of venues to play. You don't have the venues that will take your type of music.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And like you said, it's very expensive. If it's expensive on the national level, think what regional and local bands are dealing with in the process.
Yeah.
It's always kicked down to the least common denominator in terms of who's paying, right? That's the passing the buck. Oh, we'll keep passing it. Somebody will pay for it. And in the process, it gets more and more expensive.
Yep.
You have to find another route around. You could make a social media connection with somebody on your own page, on your own website. You just post videos. You can create a blog there. You can interact with people. I think you can create your own message boards on your site. I used to have message boards on some sites years ago.
Yep.
Is it a lot of work? Yeah. Well, is it any different than what you're doing now on 15 different platforms? No. Somebody's argument will go, yeah, but you'll never get the numbers that Facebook has or Instagram or TikTok or X, Y, Z, whatever. Okay, that's right. You're not going to. But we've talked about this before. If you get a dedicated following of 500 people, and out of those 500 people, 125 are constantly buying, or a number of 125 rotation through buys, well, then you're doing pretty good as a local artist.
Yep.
You're able to stay consistent. You're able to stay relevant. And that means you can constantly refresh what you're doing. Yep. That's not a bad model. We have to lower, and I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, not expectations and not standards, because though we talked about that. If you lower some of your expectations, but keep your standards high, you'll balance this out. You'll always be delivering. But the thing is sometimes we have to let go of that ego, like, oh, I got to have 100,000 fans, because you're constantly being compared to the Taylor Swifts and the Metallicas and the Joe Rogans and stuff. Well, listen, that's less than 0.5% of whatever that is. But if you can get a constant stream of 500 people, let me tell you something. In a local scene, that's a lot. That's a lot. Most venues don't hold more than 60 people. You go down to the city, there's a limitation in how many people you can get in there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You and I have played venues, 25 people is a packed house.
Packed house. Yep.
Packed house.
Yep.
So think about that. Out of those 25 people, 10 people bought merch. Oh, my God. That's an incredible night.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of lower our perspective in terms of what we truly believe is success and what isn't. Like if we put the numbers in, you would see that, hey, you know what? That's not so bad, man. I've adapted and adopted that philosophy over the years, and I've actually presented that as our model for the band. And the guys will go at the end of the night, they're like, hey, you know, that was a really good night. You know, like by themselves, they seem like small numbers. But just like this show, if you look at any one platform, our numbers are like nothing. But if you add up all those platforms, plus some of the platforms that we use that the numbers don't count, our numbers are half decent.
Right.
Best pumping gas this side of Pennsylvania. Anyway, that's where we're at. Let's get to the topic of the show before we bore anybody else. And maybe what we're talking about will lend itself a little to the topic of this show. So the topic is, will bands today have a legacy tomorrow? Will bands today have a legacy tomorrow? Let's clarify some of that. Let's talk about primarily local and regional bands, because that's kind of what the show's geared towards. Will national bands have a legacy? Yeah, sure. Not everybody. Not all of those bands are leaving a legacy, because a lot of people just don't know who they are. Will bands like Metallica and Taylor Swift and Led Zeppelin and, you know, Black Sabbath, do they have a legacy? Yeah, absolutely. Is that the standard that we work towards or we're comparing to? I don't know, because times have changed. When less was more, and these guys were pioneers. Now, like we've talked about, it's oversaturated. It's everywhere. It's accessible. Will that legacy for these newer national bands endure? I don't know. But talking about local and regional bands, you know, what do you think? Do you think that those bands today will have a legacy tomorrow? And what does that mean? What does legacy mean? Maybe you can give us some of your feelings on that. And what does that look like? What do you think, bud?
You know, that's a tough one, bro.
You picked it.
I did. First of all, what is legacy, right? Like, what is legacy? And I think you ask anybody, legacy is what you leave behind and how much of an effect you had on the culture or people's lives or what you've put out in the world, right? Like that's to me, that's legacy. You could talk about guys like, you know, take out all the legal stuff that he was through. You talk about like Michael Jackson, his legacy, and Prince and his legacy, and of course Taylor Swift, she'll have a legacy and that kind of thing. Our level, though, first of all, the first thing that comes to my mind is there going to be any artists anymore in this new year of 2025? Is there going to be any newer artists that do leave a legacy? Because it is such a here today, gone later today society that artists are in and out so fast, and you know, they have a hit today and by the end of the month they're gone. Like, nobody's talking about them. And I'm going to jump up to a higher level of people here, but you know, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, will we still be talking about a guy named Jelly Roll? I don't know. And that's the thing. It's such a fast moving, fast changing culture when it comes to music. You know, who's hot now? Okay, we'll call Sabrina Carpenter. She's hot now. Will she have a legacy in 30 years? I don't know. I don't see it. And that's nothing against her. It's nothing against the people that listen to her. It's nothing against the people that do enjoy her. I just don't know if those artists are here anymore. I don't know if we have that in our society anymore. You could look at movie stars. We don't have any legit... I mean, there's an argument to be had that we have movie stars, but we don't have movie stars that will leave a legacy behind, like a Tom Hanks or a Tom Cruise or Robert Downey Jr. Like, you know, guys like that. I don't know if we'll have that with the young men and women that are coming up in the industry, because a lot of these people that are coming up in the industry, whether it be music or movies, it's all done through social media or reality television. And I don't know. I can't see, in my opinion, I don't see those people leaving something behind that you could consider being called a legacy. Now, if you're a fan of that person, then that makes sense. You go, but if you're going to compare them to the people that actually did leave a legacy behind when they're gone, I don't know if we have that in our society anymore, in our music, no matter what music it be, no matter what music you enjoy, whether it be hard rock, heavy metal, pop, rap, country. I don't know. I don't know. Especially in the hip hop community or your rap community, those artists are in and out so quick. They release a single. They're not even, a lot of them aren't even putting out full length records because that's not that genre of music. That's not what they do. That's not their model. So I don't really see anybody of that genre leaving a legacy behind. And there really isn't a lot of bands anymore that are making it. A lot of your stuff that's out there now is single solo artists, and there's no really bands. I don't see it. I don't see any bands or artists leaving legacies behind anymore. Our industry is constantly changing. Our industry is social media based. And I mean, you could just look at the people that are going on these late night talk shows. A lot of them are coming from social media or reality television. And what kind of legacy is that? I mean, a lot of that is made up. In my opinion, I don't see it. I don't see a place where artists or bands are going to be leaving a legacy behind in the next number of years, because it's such a crazy world that we live in today where we're focusing on different things and not the actual music itself.
I would agree. Again, real quick, with the Nationals, that's always a 50-50 thing, right? It's hit or miss. That's because just there's so much the Beatles and Zeppelin and Sabbath, Michael Jackson, Queen. Can you compete with that? No. But locally, regionally, here's the thing. One of the first things I thought of is who's everybody talking about? I don't admit or even think that I have my finger on the pulse of anything. Sometimes I'm trying to fiddle around and find my own pulse, and I'm saying, well, am I dead today? I could be. I don't know. But I am aware of a certain amount that happens in our local scene and in the expanded regional scene, which is more pertaining to us, simply because I'm in a band that's still active, right? So you have to be somewhat aware of maybe who's making waves or what venue you want to play at or who's coming into town that you could jump on, something like that.
Yeah.
And I guess this goes for my own band as well. It's there's no band that anybody talks about goes, oh, you got to go see them.
Yeah.
You got to see this band. You got to go see it. You can't miss this band. Do you have bands that are working? Say they show up a lot? Yeah, you do. But for most of those original bands, it's short-lived. It's usually because they're new to the market. Somebody likes them. They get a little bit of lift for the first 6 months, maybe that first year out, and then it dies off. And then a new crop comes up. But they're never bands that kind of knock your socks off. People go, oh my God. Because if that was the case, more and more bands would be plucked out of obscurity. And it doesn't happen that way. At the same time, you're also not getting venues to promote these bands the same way as I think that they once did. Now, again, I mean, we can constantly say, well, back in the day, this. I don't know one way or the other. Again, we can find anything to support anything we want.
Yeah.
Just to validate it. But I do remember in the 80s, people would go, you got to go see this band. You got to go check out this band.
Yep.
And because of that, those band names still ring around town 40 years later, 30 years later. Or they have some level of memory attached to them that people will go, hey, I remember when this band did this and this band did that. You don't hear that today.
No.
Like you, I see hundreds of bands a year from going around playing, so on and so forth. And honestly, and this is terrible to say, most of them are not memorable in terms of their music. Maybe a little piece here, so, oh, that was kind of cool, and then it gets lost in the shuffle. Maybe there was something visually that made them stand out. Very little, though, but not enough to carry the weight. Or maybe there was some kind of haphazard situation and or attitude that probably overshadowed anything else that they did. I have plenty of those memories.
Yeah.
And that I would talk about in private. But in terms of a band that'd be like, oh, man, you got to check this band out. This is, Most recently for me, one of the bands that stood out was a last-minute national that I did. that I was not really familiar with the band, but I was captivated by their set. Not visually, there was not anything that was over the top and not like they had a light show or anything, because it was just a small venue. But musically, the way, the quality that they played had me captivated. I was like, wow, This is refreshing. Definitely eliminates any idea or thought that rock is dead. Yeah, it's dead for these guys because they ain't bringing in the money. You want to sell out when you can? Well, because you can, then do it. The rest of us who can't, we have to believe that rock isn't dead, and we need to keep pushing forward in the trenches. That's the difference. Rock isn't dead for guys in the trenches.
No.
So I don't think that there's going to be the same legacy for local and regional acts as there once was, because things have changed. Like I said, there's an oversaturation, and I truly believe that most people don't care the same way that they once did, simply because there's other distractions. That's all. Music isn't as important to everyone because it's not the only means of entertainment now. For a lot of people, it's a background music. I sent you an article some time ago about the dark side of Spotify.
Yeah.
And the article was available both in text and you could hear it in audio as well. And it talked about Spotify populating playlists with their own music, their own homegrown music by real artists, actual people. This was before the explosion of AI, which people now feel that they're doing as well, because they don't have to pay anybody. These are paid hourly rates, or, like, hey, here's $150 and you're paid for, you do 5-6 songs, and they populate them in playlists that people use, statistically shown, only for background music, to go to sleep, while they're working, cleaning the house, working out. It's not music they're engaging with, they're just filling yet another empty space. It's like having music and the TV on at the same time. I know plenty of people that keep the TV on all day and night. It's just on. Yeah. Doesn't matter what's on. It's just that there's some background noise. I know plenty of people that keep it on for their pets all day so they don't feel alone.
Yep.
I get it. I mean, I understand it. I'm not sure that I would do it because I have pets, and like, hey, you know what? Go to sleep. Save me the electricity. But the point here is I just don't think that everything is set up to create that legacy. Now, when I say that, I mean set up on the outside. Do you want to create a legacy for yourself? Well, you have more than a right to do so. How do you do it? Well, I guess that could run the gambit. But like we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, content is king. That could be a way to create legacy. Like, he has all this material, and you let people know about it. You can't really create a legacy if you don't let other people know about it.
Right.
And being an artist to some degree means that you're sharing it with another. Otherwise, I mean, listen, are there artists that just do stuff in their house and no one ever sees it? Yeah, I get it. Sure, that's not what you want to do. But for the rest of us that have that drive to create and share, well, what are you sharing? Content. The more content you have, the more things you have to share.
Right.
Not everything's going to be a mega hit. I mean, look, we talk about Kiss all the time, right? The biggest selling American rock band with the most gold records and stuff like that. I don't know, what was it, 50 million?
So I don't even know, bro. I mean, that sounds right.
They have songs that they don't even play.
Right.
Every band has it. Every band has it. Every band has filler songs on albums. They have deep track, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that you're doing it. And is that memorable? Do you put on a certain show? I don't know. Sometimes, believe it or not, and we talked about this, I think, in the last episode or the episode before, just being there could be legacy enough. 10 years go by and you're still there. Well, hey, listen, there's a legacy. Because how many bands and artists start and stop?
Yeah.
This band that I'm in now, when we first started, we played in a festival the first year, which was almost 15 years ago. We are the only band still together 15 years later. I mean, do I wear that as a badge of honor? Maybe a little bit, but I can't go make t-shirts out of it and sell my music from it. But there is something to say, well, why is that? Is it personalities? Is it conflict? Is it not having a good direction with your music, not knowing what it is that you want to accomplish? Is it not having good music? Well, you could say that all about my band as well. I'm sure there is. There's plenty of critics out there. You could do a search and find plenty of bad stuff. But at the same time, that I'm still doing this almost 15 years later has to demonstrate some depth and ability to accomplish some of those things that I just mentioned for some segment of the listening population. You, very similar. You're still doing it. You're still active. You're still finding an audience. You're still finding people to listen and to support you. So there is some validity to that, isn't there? That sometimes being around does constitute a level of legacy. There's guys that are still around, you know it, and all they talk about is something that they did 30 years ago. They're still around. They're not really putting anything out, but they're living off of that one show that they did, or that one semi-hit that they heard at a flea market they played over the intercom.
Yep.
Do you know how big I was on that Saturday at the flea market? It was unbelievable what happened after that. What happened? Well, they gave me some free fries.
You are listening to the Cosmick Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
I was at a function yesterday. I was at a benefit for someone, and I met a gentleman there, kind of from the area. I don't know him personally, but we've seen each other around. Older guy, and all he talked about was back in the day. You know, he still kind of plays. He's in a local cover band, and they just do it for fun. But all he talked about was back in the day when I did this, and back in the day when I did that. And it's so funny you said that.
Is there a legacy there? Yeah, I guess there is. But that was then. Sometimes last man standing, there's a phenomenon with that. If you're still doing something valid. Listen, how many bands have been discovered after they broke up?
Yeah.
Especially in the metal community. And then all of a sudden there's a reissue and they're asked to do this or they're brought in to do that. And it's like, like they're knocking off the dust. There was a documentary about Nasty Savage, right? Were they in Florida? I think they were in Florida, right?
Yeah, Florida, yeah.
And they had a rediscovery. And there's just bands there's lots of bands like that.
Yeah.
Attica, I think, was another band. They had a short-lived revival period, and then they're brought out to festivals in Germany and wherever else,
Yep.
But the thing is a lot of those bands that can't sustain something new. Some don't want to, and some just can't.
Yeah.
I think that for local and regional bands, I think part of that legacy is that you keep moving forward. You keep pushing the boundaries of your own creativity. You give yourself the option or the opportunity to do more. Because it's easy to say, okay, I've done enough. Like, I don't have to do as much. I mean, there is a luxury in that, and there's a freedom in that. But at the same time, if you're still looking to make some type of impact, some type of difference, even if it's just in your own music, you got to push the envelope, man. You have to some degree. And if that means trying something different, and again, not promoting my band, I know we have to say this disclaimer all the time. This is just using as an example based on experience. Because, yes, I can talk about other people and other things, but it doesn't matter because it's just me giving armchair quarterback commentary as opposed to, hey, I did this, or I didn't do this, or I fell on my face here. One of the newest things that my band has been exploring the last couple of years is cover songs. And we've done well with it, even though I fought it most of all of my career. I wouldn't do it. And I still fight it to a certain degree. There's still internal fighting. Not that we're putting on gloves, but I have some pushback. I don't know, we should do, because we do a couple songs that did well, and we rehearsed them, but I'd rather do our original set. Then there's hey, we should do this cover song. I'm like, no, I don't necessarily want to do that cover song. Okay, we'll do the cover song, that kind of thing. And I say, we'll decide on the fly whether or not to do the cover song. They know that by that time I'm already softened up because we're already playing live. But I pushed my own boundaries there. Comfort levels, beliefs, perspectives. Which has helped me change how I'm writing songs or look at writing my own material slightly differently. The thing is I want to demonstrate there is a difference between us doing a cover song and us doing our original song. I'll tell you what, I've heard more about tribute bands. Oh, this is a tribute band you have to see. Well, to me, it either means that, one, they're doing something, content that other people aren't doing, or they're that much better than the rest of the crews that are out there, which honestly, in my opinion, and this is not whatever, that's not very hard to do because a lot of cover bands are just downright not that good.
Yep.
You don't have to be that good because you're basing everything on the popularity of the music you play.
Yep.
Oh, at least I'll know most of the songs. That's the difference between a cover and a original band.
Yeah.
People go, well, I don't really know their music. I've never heard you guys before. I hear that all the time. Well, give us 10 minutes and you'll hear everything that we do, you know? So, do I think that the legacy for most bands just coming right out of the gate will be there? No, I don't think so. I mean, in our area in Philadelphia, and again, all these bands that I'm going to call out had been signed at some point, some bigger than others, but they created a legacy even in the local scene at the time. Tease, now called Rough House, Britny Fox, Cinderella, Tangier, Dead End Kids. Dead End Kids never got signed. They were playing in the late 70s and early 80s. It's 2025, not to date the show. People still talk about the Dead End Kids. Anybody from the Philly and Jersey area that's playing in a rock band, believe it or not, you were influenced by the Dead End Kids because whoever you listened to before and they listened to before, chances are, was inspired by the Dead End Kids.
So true. So true.
It's amazing. But that's what I'm talking about when we brought up this topic before the season started in terms of what is legacy. That's a legacy of a band in the local scene. I don't even think there was a regional scene for them, the way we would think of a regional scene.
No.
Like, say, with Twisted Sister or something like that.
Right.
However, these guys are still enduring name alone, and probably what they did at the time. And they did a lot of covers. I, some time ago, played a benefit for a guitar player who passed. He played in the band Harpo. If you're from Pennsylvania and upper into the state, Harpo was a huge band. Huge band. They wound up getting signed to Atlantic. They were on tour with David Lee Roth, which they were kicked off, if I remember the story correctly, for antics. But they were a big regional band. Here is a band now, you're just about 35, 40 years later, people still talk about Harpo.
Yeah.
That's how big they were regionally and locally at that time in the 80s. Again, you're just not hearing about it for whatever reason. Oversaturation, not so great quality, no support. It's hard to say. Do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I think it's something everybody can achieve? Absolutely not, in terms of if you're depending on all the other elements. Could you create your own legacy? Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's no different than, a small family, whatever it is, you raise your family, that's a legacy in itself. And that carries on to your children, and that carries on to your grandchildren. If the family continues like that, that's a legacy in itself. Basically, I guess, to go back to the beginning of this topic, what is legacy? It's what's carried on after you're no longer here. And will bands today, locally, regionally, have that opportunity? Can it be done? Ask yourself that. Think about it. As an artist, if you're questioning that, you need to reevaluate and say, what can I do to make that possible? That's it. Keep swinging. Content is king. What do you think, buddy? You got anything else you want to add?
I think the one thing I did want to reiterate is, there's always that chance of someone coming up and leaving a legacy, right? Like, I mean, there's, as long as we're all still alive, and as long as people are creating, there's always that chance of somebody changing the game. But in this day and age of 15-second clips, 30-second clips, it's hard. Like, you had mentioned earlier in the show about music just being background noise. I don't necessarily think that, and I had this conversation before with some friends pretty recently. I don't know if music is consumed the way, and what I say, I don't mean consumed in terms of buying, consumed is in terms of listening. I don't know how many people listen to music the same way they did a number of years ago. Of course, there are people out there that do listen to it, but like you said, music has kind of just become background noise. I don't think artists like us and people that play and create music, I think we always will have that love for music, but I think the general population, when it comes to music, is just consider background noise, because we have this generation of people that that just consume music in dance crazes and 15 and 30-second clips. I think that's the hardest part about where we're at today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just do your thing, make the best effort, and see what happens. If you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmickvoice.com. Step into the Cosmickverse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. If you have a question, a topic idea, or something you want us to address, just contact us through our Facebook page at The Cosmick Voice. You can listen to The Cosmick Voice at Spotify, Breaker, Apple, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, and at thecosmickview.com. Check us out on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Mick and I would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes of The Cosmick Voice. And you can get in touch with us through thecosmickvoice.com and, of course, all of the Cosmick Voice social medias. Take care and be safe.
You're listening to The Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.